I'm Russell, and this is Russell's Movie Corner. And as you can see, I'm sitting in front of my movie wall. I've got my Star Wars The Last Jedi shirt. That means I'm doing another video. So today I want to talk about Screen Rant's 15 mistakes you completely missed in The Last Jedi. I have the article printed off here, and I'm going to put a link in the description down below, so if you want to go actually read the original article on Screen Rant, you can. Something that I want to kind of get off my chest first is, back when Star Wars The Force Awakens first came out, a guy, and I can't remember what it was from, I don't remember if it was Screen Rant or something, but they had an article called 15 Things You Could, or no, sorry, that's the article we're doing today, 39 Plot Holes in The Force Awakens. I went through and systematically debunked all 39 plot holes, okay? And for lack of a better way to do something, I sent it to the man through the email. And this time I couldn't do that with this. So I had sat down, I had debunked every single one of these plot holes and continuity errors and crap. And the thing was, this guy never, there was no way to email him. So I just kind of wanted to sit down today, and I know this video is going to be a little bit longer, but I wanted to sit down just like when I did Brandon Malone's six things fans of The Last Jedi are getting wrong rebuttal, which is the previous video to this one. I kind of want to go through and kind of systematically kind of debunk this article from Screen Rant today. So again, forgive me if I'm kind of looking down and not looking straight at the camera, because I'm going to be kind of reading through this guy's article, and then I'm going to kind of talk about some different things at different times, because I think it's like I read this article and I'm like, did this guy actually watch the film? Kind of like with Brandon, did this guy actually really truly see Star Wars The Last Jedi? Because a lot of these make sense if you take it within the context of the lore of Star Wars. And again, if we need to get this out of the way, I talked about this in the 6 Things video, and I think it deserves mentioning, okay? This is no longer canon. If it says Legends, okay? If it says Legends, this is no longer canon, okay? And this. So again, if it has this timeline that looks like this is no longer canon, okay? Now, some of the ideas, some of the characters, some of the things they might reuse for certain things, okay? But this is not canon. It's not. What is canon is this, okay? If you open up a new Star Wars novel, if you're not sure, go down to Barnes & Noble, pick up a Star Wars novel, okay? And if it does not say Legends on it, pick it up and take a look on the inside. If this is what the timeline looks like, then it's canon, okay? It says the Del Rey Star Wars timeline, okay? This is now canon, all right? It'll look like this, okay? This is what canon is, okay? So now that we've established that, let's jump into this article titled 15 Mistakes You Completely Missed in The Last Jedi. Now for me, this article is just garbage. It really is. Because not only did this guy miss a lot of this stuff, just completely miss it, he completely missed the point of the movie. Again, the movies are there for us to enjoy. Okay? That's all movies are. Okay? They're entertainment. They should entertain you. And if they don't entertain you, then that's fine. But you don't need to write articles like this where you completely come up with random things that don't actually make sense. So let's talk a little bit about this. Let's jump in here. This guy's going to start the article. Star Wars The Last Jedi is a mixed bag of vanishing dice. This is him talking. Critics love it for refreshing and reinventing the galaxy for a new generation, while hardcore fans seemingly hate it for the liberties it takes with the classic formula and characters. Basically, it all comes down to whether or not you like space nuts. One thing is for sure, this is not George Lucas's Star Wars, nor apparently is it Mark Hamill's, who has gone on record as saying that he's not my Luke Skywalker and, quote, Jedis don't give up. Apparently, Mark Hamill forgot that Yoda fled to Dagobah following his defeat at the hands of the Emperor, and that Obi-Wan fled to Tatooine. Jedis don't give up. Wouldn't the Jedis have stuck around if they didn't give up and fight? No, Yoda spent, 25 years? 23 years? Something like that? Before he started training Luke? Jedis don't give up? What? The point that Rian Johnson's trying to make, and I touched on this a lot, actually, in the previous video about Left Foot Media, where it's like, he was like, oh, this guy does this, and Frank Spencer's this moment with, that's what he does. Luke always ran away. Okay, he ran away from his chores on Tatooine. He ran away from Vader on Cloud City. I mean, heck, and like I said in that one, Mark Hamill had in mind, had in his own mind, he had a story, and I think it was going back to the 90s, back to the early 90s. He was being interviewed, and somebody asked him, hey, has George Lucas contacted you about 7, 8, and 9? And he goes, yeah. He said, I think another 10, 20 years down the road, we're going to do something. And the funny thing is, it's now 10 to 20 years down the road. Okay? But, Mark Hamill had in his head his own version of the character, what the character would have done, or something like that. But that's the thing. Now, I found an article on Entertainment Weekly, okay, that that kind of explains what this is. Because I saw, like everybody, you look at Internet Movie Database, you go to imdb.com, type in Star Wars The Last Jedi, and then you go to the page and you go down to the trivia section. And in the trivia section, one of the top things that it says is Mark Hamill stated he's not my Luke Skywalker, and there was like this spat between him and Rian Johnson. And so I had read an article leading up to The Last Jedi, right before The Last Jedi, where it said that he had actually kind of regretted saying that, because once he saw the finished product, because they kind of see a rough cut of the film before they actually send it out. This is before the premiere. So these people in Entertainment Weekly came out and actually wrote this article, and this is what the article says. Mark Hamill once proclaimed he's not my Luke Skywalker, referring to how his iconic Star Wars character was depicted in The Last Jedi. But amid criticisms from fans, including petition to have Episode 8 removed from canon, the actor now regrets making those concerns public. I regret voicing my doubts and insecurities in public. Creative differences are a common element of any project, but usually remain private, Hamill tweeted on Tuesday. All I wanted was to make a good movie. I got more than that. Writer-director Rian Johnson made an all-time great one. #humbled Hamill. Now, this was written 12/27 of 2017, so this is actually about a week after the movie, and I think this one was like right around the time that the movie came out, so maybe this guy didn't know that. Anyway, continuing on with the Entertainment Weekly article, Hamill commented in response to quotes he gave to IMDb. I have trouble accepting what Johnson saw for Luke, but again, I have to say, having seen the movie, I was wrong. He said, I think being pushed out of your comfort zone is a good thing, because if I was just another benevolent Jedi training young Padawans, we've seen it. But that wasn't all. Hamill also told Vanity Fair that, after reading the script for The Last Jedi, he told Johnson, I pretty much fundamentally disagree with every choice you've made for this character. Now, having said that, I've gotten it off my chest, and my job is to now take what you've created and do my best to realize your vision. So, honestly, he was just like, you know what, I don't agree with the direction you've taken the character, but you know what, that's not my place. You're the writer, you're the director, it's my job as the actor to bring your vision to life. And that's all he said, okay? To the Spanish language outset, Sensacine, he explained further, I said to Rian, Jedis don't give up. Even if he had a problem, he would maybe take a year to try to regroup, but if he made a mistake, he would try and right that wrong. So right there, we had a fundamental difference. But it's not my story anymore, referring to Mark Hamill. It's somebody else's story, and Rian needed me to be a certain way to make the ending effective. Star Wars The Last Jedi saw Hamill Skywalker on the island of Acto, where Rey, Daisy Ridley, came to learn the Jedi arts. The reason the veteran Jedi Knight is hunkering down on this remote location instead of fighting the First Order is, as Hamill previously told EW, Luke made a huge mistake in thinking that his nephew, Adam Driver's Kylo Ren, was the chosen one. So he invested everything he had in Kylo, much like Obi-Wan did with my character. And I think also that was also what as Obi-Wan did with Anakin. Because Obi-Wan, originally, if you go back and watch Episode 1, Obi-Wan didn't want to train Anakin at first. He was like, why are we even dragging this kid along with us? And then, when his master died, he promised his master that he would train him. So he literally puts everything he has into this character. Okay? And he does the same thing with Luke to a certain extent. And then Mark Hamill goes on. He says, and he is betrayed with tragic consequences. Luke feels responsible for that. So again, if you're watching this video, if you've seen my previous video about the six things that fans of The Last Jedi are getting wrong, there it is. Luke feels responsible. There's your motivation. It's right there. Even Mark Hamill knows that. And if Mark Hamill knows that, the guy that actually plays the character of Luke Skywalker, then how come people have such a hard time seeing that motivation? It just blows my mind when people do that. Alright, getting back into this article here, he says, on top of all that, the movie has made some fairly serious snafus that go well beyond its unforgivable underuse of porgs and its equally as unforgivable overuse of shirtless Kylo Rens. Are you talking about memes, dude? Seriously? Or just the fact that the Force connected Rey and Ren at an inopportune time? Like, wouldn't he be shirtless sometime? I doubt he's going to go to bed in that heavy tunic he wears. Okay? I mean, that would be stupid. I mean, yeah, I can understand that Luke Skywalker's living like a monk on the planet of Acto, so of course he's going to sleep in the clothes that he has. Because he's not going to have a lot of blankets and, comforts and all that kind of stuff. So of course he's going to sleep in clothing. But Kylo Ren's on a air-conditioned ship, a temperature-controlled ship, isn't he? Isn't that what this First Order is? I mean, that's what I thought. So, I mean, like, wouldn't he have to, wouldn't he strip down to go take a shower at some point? I mean, come on. Use a little common sense here, folks. I mean, that's the whole point of this, is if you come to this and you're like, man, The Last Jedi sucked, I hope I can change your mind just to the fact that use a little common sense when you're watching this movie. Okay? It's not that bad. Alright, getting back into it. These range from the inevitable continuity error, this is the article again, to the far more troublesome faults in the story. So regardless of whether you find yourself on the light side of loving the film or the dark side of wanting to see it laser sorted into oblivion, Episode 8 has enough mistakes and gaffes and plot holes to make even Jar Jar Binks shake his head in disapproval. Okay, well maybe they're not that bad. And you know what? I'm going to debunk each and every one of these. Okay, let's go, Chrome Domes here. 15 mistakes you completely missed in Star Wars The Last Jedi. 15, Rey somehow knows how to swim. This is the article. Maybe this is not so much a mistake as a bewildered observation, but given the fact that Rey has lived her entire life on the desert planet Jakku, how does she know how to swim so well? Before arriving on Acto, the most water she had ever seen was the slop pot used by piggish Hapabors on Nema Outpost. Yet there she was, falling down a big black hole in an underground lake and masterfully swimming ashore without a problem. Well, we wouldn't expect her to drown. At the very least, she should have doggy paddled. And again, Rey had never used a lightsaber before either and was instantly a pro at both. She's just that good, we guess, or she had a membership to the Y on Jakku. Yet this guy's assuming that she had never seen water before in her life. I mean, it's like, it just boggles my mind that the assumptions made here. It says, remember, she was dropped off at a very young age. Okay, around 8, I think. If you really go back and watch The Force Awakens, you see her in the dream sequence. Okay, when she's touching the lightsaber, when she first touches Luke's lightsaber, or Anakin's old lightsaber, it was Luke's too. Okay, touches the lightsaber, and she starts seeing the visions, like she sees Cloud City. Okay, I went back and actually skimmed through the novelization to the point, and it does actually say when she was dropped off. That was actually added into the movie later, I think. And so, but it shows Unkar Plutt holding a young girl on the sands of Jakku. Okay? Now, one of the interesting things is, again, Star Wars Force Awakens Visual Dictionary. Let's go to page 30. Because it says that the little stormtrooper doll that she made right up here, okay? The stormtrooper doll says Rey crafted this Alliance pilot doll when she was 10 years old from debris she found in the junk fields. So we know that she was scavenging at 10 years old. And if so, that means that a little bit before that, because she's not like a baby when she was dropped off. It's not like we see Luke and Leia as little infants, newborns in episode 3. She was a young girl. So this guy's assuming that she'd never seen water before, like, or that maybe her parents, whomever they were, couldn't have taught her to swim in those first few years of her life. Because if that's the truth, and then maybe she had her mind wiped in some way, so that she wouldn't remember who her parents were. Because remember, we don't know who her parents are at this point. Okay, so I mean, episode 8 says that they were just junk traders, but there's really not much that they talk about that in either visual dictionary. I've read both of the visual dictionaries on Rey, and neither one of them really kind of talk about her parentage. So again, we don't know who her parents are at this point. Okay, so I mean, if somebody like used the Force to erase her mind, okay, she wouldn't have remembered learning how to swim, but she would still know how to swim. Okay, another prevailing theory. This is the one my friend had, my ex-Marine friend. He said that the Force can teach people things. And that is something that we've seen in the old Legends EU. We've seen people that had no idea what was going on, and then all of a sudden they know how to do something because the Force taught them how to do it. So, I mean, the Force is the Deus Ex Machina of the entire Star Wars universe. So, of course, it could do things like that. So, yeah, I mean, why wouldn't it be able to teach somebody to swim in a nanosecond? I mean, that's just the way it is. But I think that, again, this is just kind of one of those things where I think it just makes more sense that her mind just kind of fills in the blanks. And having watched the film in preparation for these 2 videos, I went back and watched the movie. I didn't get all the way through it, but I did see this particular scene. And I mean, she's not exactly like, duh, duh, duh. No, she's like, splash, 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 splash. So she's not exactly swimming masterfully. And I mean, she drops straight down in. So a body's first natural instinct, I mean, if you actually put a baby, like if you actually, like YouTube, babies underwater, I mean, it's fascinating. They actually some people have put babies underwater, and they kind of instinctively kind of know how to swim. And so, but if you like dip them down, their first reaction is to try to get their head back to the water as fast as possible. That's just a natural instinctive thing for people to do. So it just makes sense that if she falls straight in, she's going to turn around and come straight back up. Okay, so I don't know why this person said this, and but for me, I think her parents taught her how to swim, and maybe she forgot because she spent so much time where she hasn't seen anything, and so she's just kind of like, where she hasn't seen water. Yeah, she's only seen those slop pots from the Habibors, but I would think that she would know how to swim because maybe her parents taught her before she was just unceremoniously dumped on Jakku. Okay, and because of the fact that she doesn't really remember her time on Jakku, like she only knows Jakku. I think that kind of lends credence to the fact that maybe her parents actually did Force mind wipe her, and we won't know, and I mean, we may never know, and that's the thing. So we'll have to wait till episode 9. We may learn her parentage, we may not. So we'll see what happens. All right, back to the article here, number 14. The First Order could have easily destroyed the Resistance ship. Are you seriously going to tell us that the entirety of the First Order's fleet could not stop one lone, rickety old ship from getting away at a snail's pace? Right off the bat, we can think of about 12 parsecs worth of likely ways they could have gotten the job done. How about having another ship jump ahead in front of the Raddus and surround them? Or calling up another dreadnought? Poe alluded to the fact that there were more than one, and having the massive gunship blast the Raddus with its massive orbital cannons. Then there's the paradox created when Vice Admiral Holdo sacrifices herself by hyperspacing through the First Order's fleet. Why didn't the First Order just do the same with any of its light-speed capable ships, and similarly hyperspace ram the lone craft to death? First off, the Raddus wasn't old and rickety. Okay, let's get that out of the way right now. It's actually a state-of-the-art Resistance ship. It was the largest Mon Calamari cruiser built to that point. So if you remember Return of the Jedi, you had Home 1, which was that big Alliance ship that Admiral Akbar used. Okay, that ship creates a... That ship was huge, but the Raddus is like half again the size of that ship. Okay, but does that mean that the Raddus had access to state-of-the-art maintenance facilities? No. I mean, so it's going to appear on the outside old and rickety. But if you look at the sets, they're not old and rickety. Yeah, sure, they're used, but they're not dingy and dirty and cruddy. I mean, again, I don't know if this guy really actually watched the movie. But the First Order lost a dreadnought to the Resistance in the opening scene. So I'm sure they decided against that because they didn't know if the Resistance had more bombers waiting. They could have had more bombers. You don't know that. Okay, the First Order doesn't know that. So I'm sure that Snoke and Hux discussed it at length and decided we don't need to try to waste another dreadnought, because if we do, and they have more bombers, they could blow it back up again, and we'll get to that here in a minute. So also, the Raddus was low on fuel. In fact, the novelization of Episode 8, this book right here, okay, tells them that they didn't have their or all their fuel reserves were on Dakar in the Alenium system and was blown up. They actually mention that. I know they don't mention it in the film, but they actually mention that in the book. So it's actually in the book. It's actually in the novelization that their fuel reserves were blown up. So it's like, why waste a ship when, I mean, it's like in 6 hours that ship's going to run out of fuel. It's just a siege at that point. And for anyone who studied medieval combat knows that a siege is you're waiting, okay, and you're just going to get it right there, okay? So you're just going to kind of move it up and just, do it, okay? So that's the point is that we're trying to make here, is that it's a tactical thing, okay? Why waste men and material on a ship that's going to be dead in the water in a few hours anyway? Okay, it's not gonna do that. Okay, as for the whole jumping a ship ahead of them and surrounding the Raddus, apparently this person has never watched Star Wars Episode 5: The Empire Strikes Back. Okay, the Empire tried that with the Millennium Falcon, and what happened? So they had a Star Destroyer chasing them like this, right? And they had 2 Star Destroyers coming at them like this, and the Millennium Falcon's in the middle. What did the Millennium Falcon do? Pew! Did this guy forget that space is 3 dimensions? It's not just length and width, it's height, dude. Height. Ergo, you're going to need a sphere of ships, okay, to surround the Raddus. Okay? So, I mean, if the First Order truly rose from the ashes of the Empire, which it did, okay, they will have studied those old tapes of those battles, and they would have said, you know what? We don't have enough ships to be able to surround this lighter, faster cruiser. The other thing is, this person, I don't think they watched this movie because the Raddus isn't getting away at a snail's pace. They were literally, like, running as full speed as they possibly could. Okay? Think about this. This is the one thing that they got about physics right in the Star Wars universe. Snoke's ship, according to the Visual Dictionary, let me just look this up real quick because I wanna be sure about this. 32. Yeah, the Supremacy is a gigantic wing, 60 kilometers wide, which blurs the line between capital ship and mobile space station. So, guys, that's a huge ship. Okay, the Raddus is tiny compared to that. It's only like that big. It's this teeny tiny little thing. But again, the Raddus is smaller and faster. Okay, they actually say this in the movie. Okay, it says, oh, they're running at full speed and we can't, because Hux actually says that. He's like, how come we can't catch up to them? He's like, because they're faster, sir. We're going as fast as we can, but we can't catch up to them. And he's like, well, keep up the barrage. At least it'll remind them. And it'll kind of waste their fuel, too. Okay, so they even know that the Raddus is running on fumes. Duh. They know because they caught them in the middle of their evacuation. Had they had like a week to prepare, those guys would have had all of their fuel and all of their things, and the First Order, I don't think, ever would have found them because they would have hyperspaced out of the system, and they wouldn't have had the hyperspace tracking capability. We'll get to that, okay? But I mean, that's the thing. Now, as the hyperspace ramming, I assume this guy watched Episode 7. Because Episode 7 has a line that's very relevant to this. Okay? When they're flying to Takodana, after they escape from the freighter that Han Solo was using on the Millennium Falcon. Okay? They're going to... and the compressor starts going out. And Han says, if we don't get this compressor fixed soon, there's going to be pieces of us in 3 different systems. Blowing up at hyperspeed spreads your debris over a large area. Okay? Now, for the uninitiated, hyperspace lanes. We talked about this in the other video. I mentioned it with the navigators that are on Snoke's ship, the tall mute aliens that run his little Oculus viewing scope. Okay? They can see. They're kind of like those, if you've ever played the original Star Wars customizable card game, they had this guy called Brainiac, okay? And he was this big alien with a big bulbous brain, and he could calculate light speed. This was stuff that came out of Lucasfilm back in the 90s. And, there were people in the Star Wars universe that could calculate light speed in their heads, okay? Usually you had to have some kind of an astromech droid, or you had to have a navicomputer with all of the data inside of it, okay? Because we talked about that in Episode 4. It says, it'll take a few moments to get the coordinates from the navicomputer. You can't just jump to hyperspace because you'll bounce too close to a star or bounce too close to a supernova. You could fly through a planet, okay? I mean, that'll end your trip real quick. And it'll ruin people's days, okay? So this is not something that you can just do whatever you want, okay? It's not, and besides, if you could just run a ship through another ship at light speed, why would anybody fly anymore? I mean, that would be stupid. Then you would just take a TIE fighter, put a hyperdrive on it, and just send it out on a remote, like a little drone, and you would just send it through things. Why? What would be the point of even having a space battle then? Okay? It's a last-ditch effort, okay, by Admiral Holdo. This is the thing. She was all out of options at this point. She can't turn the ship around. She can't use her guns against it. So my thought was, as soon as she turned the ship around towards the fleet, I thought she's either going to ram them at full speed, okay, and sacrifice herself, or she's going to hyperspace ram them. Like she's going to jump to hyperspace. And as soon as I saw her flipping the switches, and then she put her hand on that hyperspace lever that Poe had, Because they specifically showed Poe putting his hand on that lever, you know, when they were trying to get, disable the thing so that they could jump to light speed. Okay? Before Leia shows up and stuns Poe. They did that specifically so that you would see her put her hand on that lever and you would go, oh my god, she's actually going to ram them at hyperspeed. That is insane. So yeah, I mean, it's just, yeah, I think that this argument is just thin right here. I think this guy's just grasping at straws because he doesn't really understand, like, how Star Wars really works. And so he's just like, he's gone into this movie and he's like, well, why don't they just do that? Well, you can't. Man, that's the point. So, anyway, getting back into the article. Number 13. Luke used his blue lightsaber in the final showdown. Let's go right to the crate of the matter. The final showdown on the salty red planet between Kylo Ren and Luke Skywalker was certainly one of the oddest non-lightsaber duels ever to grace the end of a Star Wars film, in more ways than one. Ever heard the term distraction? That's all Luke was there for, man. He was distracting the First Order because he knew how Kylo Ren's hatred of him was. Okay, he was there just to distract them. That's it. Okay, this is why I wonder if he ever watched the film in the first place, or if he just had somebody give him the Spark Notes version, or the Cliff Notes version. It just doesn't make any sense. The action of the characters makes sense in the context of the story, if you bother to actually put your mind in it. Okay? I mean, that's the thing. Back to the article. It says, however, momentarily ignoring the most baffling things surrounding Luke force projecting himself onto the battle-ridden planet, there was just one we can't wrap our heads around. Namely, why didn't Kylo realize Luke was holding his lightsaber despite Emo Vader having personally just ripped it apart a few scenes prior? Ever been mad? Truly mad? Okay? I don't... Now, for me, I don't remember details. Okay? It's just a haze of things. Now, a friend of mine said that he sees things in sharp focus. Okay? But again, you're not paying attention to details at that point. Okay? If you go back and ask somebody who was truly mad, okay? Like, really angry. Okay? And if you watch that scene, okay, Kylo Ren's standing on the bridge of his little shuttle, that kind of a fixed-wing shuttle looks like that. He's standing on the bridge of that shuttle, and he's like, "Marr!" and he's like clenching his fist. He's angry. Okay? He wants to end Luke. No matter what he's holding, he doesn't care what he's holding. He just wants to end his old master. That's the whole point, man. Like, I mean, it's like, that's because of what happened at the New Jedi Temple, and because of what happened with other things in the context of the story. Here again, in the context of the story, Kylo Ren really hated Luke. Okay? And he just wanted to end him. No matter the cost, no matter what he was holding. Back to the article. Wouldn't seeing his old master holding something that no longer existed be a clue that something was amiss? Maybe Kylo was too blinded by his own rage, but it's kind of hard to ignore a blazing blue laser sword when it's swung right in your face. Did I miss something? Because I don't remember Luke, like, swinging a lightsaber in Kylo's face, like, nee. I remember Kylo swinging his lightsaber at Luke all the time, and Luke just dancing around him. I mean, that's proof that even if Luke was there, okay, even if he was actually physically on Crate, Kylo still wouldn't have been a match for him. Kylo's not a lightsaber master, okay? He wasn't like, he wasn't like an Anakin Skywalker. He didn't have all that stuff. He was just kind of, and that's why he got beat by Finn. It's why he got beat by Rey. Okay? I mean, this is an interesting thing, going back to the visual dictionary. Okay? If we go back and look at Rey, let me see here. It says, a tough life. Rey's skills as a scavenger have earned the respect of many junk traders, particularly Unkar Plutt, who orders his thugs not to steal her wares as she is much more valuable as a continued source of salvage. When Rey oversteps this fragile respect by reneging on a trade with Plutt, the temperamental junk boss orders that she be taught a violent lesson. This is far from the only betrayal she has suffered. The harsh conditions of Jakku have taught Rey that good fortune often invites trouble, and bullies only fear and strength. And so one of the things that it says is that it says Rey has learned self-defense as a matter of necessity. With her battered but durable staff, she has perfected thrusting, swinging, and striking techniques to keep away thugs. And it says, and then I think it might be in the other dictionary as well, but it says that because she taught herself how to swing with the staff, it's how she knows how to use, because she already knows how to do it with two, which is why she flips the lightsaber around in her primary hand, because if she's used to holding a staff like this, then in her primary hand, the blade's going to be this, because that's how you strike. Okay? So she knows how to fight. That's how she knows how to use a lightsaber, because she knows how to fight. Okay? So, again, Luke Skywalker was only there as a distraction. Okay? On Crate. And he wasn't swinging the lightsaber around in Kylo Ren's face. He was just holding it there. Kylo Ren was the one swinging his lightsaber around at Luke. He was just trying to end Luke no matter what. He was just trying to end him. And that's it. And that's all you have to know about it. Go back and watch the film and you'll see Kylo Ren is truly angry. He's not paying attention to what Luke's holding. He doesn't care that Luke's holding a lightsaber that he destroyed a few scenes ago, because in his mind he's like, this is my former master, I'm going to kill him. Comes back to that line, let the past die. Kill it if you have to. Okay? That's his whole mentality. Which makes me wonder if this person ever saw the movie. Or even if Brandon had ever seen the movie, because it's there if you can listen. Watch the film. Back to the article. Number 12. Rey's sleight of feet atop Acto. Speaking of weird moments involving lightsabers, how about the jarring jump cut when Rey confronts Luke for the first time on Acto? In an act of reverence, she reaches out and hands Luke his long-lost weapon. The shot then cuts suddenly, and in the next frame she's standing really far away, as she would have had to throw the thing at him for it to make any sense. While there were numerous similar continuity errors on Acto, if not the entire film, we're not going to nitpick them all. Given the scope of the production for The Last Jedi, you can forgive the script supervisor for missing a thing or two. However, this is a momentous occasion for the franchise, having been featured in not one but two films. So you would think they would have paid special attention to where everyone was standing. First off, it's a sign of respect to back away from a person of importance. Like, you don't walk into an interview and go stand up in the manager's grill and be like, hi, hi, hi. No, you walk up, you shake their hand, and then you step back. Okay? That's a sign of respect for somebody in a position of authority. Okay? So, it makes sense that she walked up to him. Now, in The Force Awakens, she just walks up and shows him the lightsaber. She's just holding it out to him. She's not all up in his grill. She's holding it out, and she's way far back from him. Now, in this movie, she actually walks up, okay? She pulls it out, and then she walks forward, and she hands it to him, okay? Then, the lightsaber focuses in on the lightsaber, and Luke is holding it like this, okay? And he's literally holding it in his hands. He's kind of looking at it, and then he looks up at Rey. And the camera goes from Luke to Rey, and Rey actually takes like 3 steps back in the film. Go back and watch the scene. You'll see she actually does take like 3 steps back. And if she's walking downhill, of course she's going to be back farther. It's going to look farther because she's on a hill. Duh. So again, did this person watch the film? It's right there for everyone to see. And you know what? I would love for this person to make a film 100% continuity error free. 2.5 hours. Good luck. Back to the article. Star Destroyers completely ignore the bomber ships. Star Wars villains sure do love their super weapons, but surprisingly they're terrible at protecting them. In this movie alone, we not only get a miniaturized Death Star battering ram, but the First Order also unveils its pride and joy in the dreaded Dreadnought, only to be immediately get blown to smithereens. The Last Jedi opens with Poe Dameron single-handedly taking on the First Order to pave the way for a fleet of MG-100 Star Fortress bombers. Equipped with 1,048 proton bombs, they certainly pack enough heat to do some serious damage. This is why it's so confusing General Hux doesn't order any one of the multiple Star Destroyers floating idly by to fire at the incoming threat. Instead, a swarm of TIE fighters are deployed in a scatterbrained defensive that results in one of the bombers getting through and blowing yet another one of their toys to Kingdom Come. First off, a Dreadnought's armor is thick. In fact, Captain Kennedy says this. He actually says, like, this armor is very, very thick. You know, he's not trying to penetrate our armor, he's taking out our surface cannons. Just like, again, did this guy watch a Star Wars movie? Going back to episode 4, okay? The surface ships were too small and too fast that the gigantic turbo laser batteries, the same thing that's on a Star Destroyer, by the way, the same thing that's on this Dreadnought that this guy's talking about, okay? A lone ship can fly in between them. They even say that in the movie. Lord Vader, we count 30 rebel ships, but they're so small they're evading our turbo lasers, to which Vader replies, then we'll have to destroy them ship to ship. Get the crews to their fighters, which makes me think this guy's never seen a Star Wars movie in his entire life. Again, common sense, context, understand it? Second, the bombers were all destroyed. Every last one of them. In fact, I don't even think they have shield generators. Because, like, the first time they're flying in, they had, like, what, 10 of these things? 8 or 10 of these things in the opening scene? I didn't count them. But I'm just kind of going by how many I saw. They had, like, 8 or 10 of these things. And every single one of them were destroyed before they even reached the bomber. Only one of them made it through. That's not a defense? Holy crap, man! It's a war of attrition. That's what Star Wars has always been. In fact, hell, the Star Wars customizable card game had an entire mechanic on attrition. Okay? It's a war of attrition. So, I mean, it's like, yeah, and the TIE fighters took them apart. So why try to shoot from a distance? Again, if you're a military man, okay, why try to shoot something at a distance? Okay, so if you were, let's say, on a battleship in the war in the Pacific in World War II, okay, and there's a carrier and there's a plane harassing the carrier, okay, you're not going to take your 16-inch guns and try to shoot the plane down with your 16-inch guns. You're not even going to try to shoot it down with your 5-inch cannons. Why? Because you could hit your own ship. They could have blown their own dreadnought out of the water. Which makes me think this person has no clue what goes on in a battle. I mean, he even says, like, General Hux even says, destroy that ship. But then Poe uses a thing to get in range. And I'm sure Hux went, no, don't shoot. Let the thing destroy it. And then, of course, he's seeing all the surface cannons explode, so he dials up the thing. Captain Kennedy, why haven't you blown that ship out of the sky? And he's like, because it's too small. We need to scramble our fighters 5 bloody minutes ago. They say it in the damn movie. Again, have you seen a Star Wars film? The action makes sense in the context of the story. Watch it. Just watch the film. You'll see it. It's right there. It's in plain as day. Which makes me think a lot of people went in here expecting too much. It's that bar of expectation that I talked about in the previous video. Alright. Moving on. Hyperspace tracking technology isn't as new as everyone thinks. Director Rian Johnson reveals that the First Order has new technology that can track ships through hyperspace. Upon realizing this, the Resistance is both impressed and demoralized, though it's an odd reaction considering past events. Somehow everyone has forgotten Darth Vader was able to track Princess Leia's ship in A New Hope after it jumped to hyperspace. Sure, in Rogue One, Jyn stumbles on Empire files detailing something called hyperspace tracking navigational systems. However, that would make this tech anything but new, and doesn't explain why everyone acts like this is something out of the blue, or why it took decades and a single maintenance worker named Rose to figure it out what was going on. Okay. First off, it was, and it says, maybe if Leia weren't in a space flying induced coma, she would have set everyone straight. In other news, we're still waiting for the First Order to unveil its ability to go plaid with ludicrous speed. First off, it was mentioned in Rogue One. Okay? and who was the technical advisor on that film? Oh, that's right. Rian Johnson. It's right there in the credits, man. Of course he wanted to put that in there. He had this. They'd already written the script for it. He was filming it at the time they were finishing Rogue One. Of course they were going to put it in there. Duh. Because the First Order rose from the ashes of the Empire. They would have known where Scarif was. They would have gone and plundered every single one of those files. Okay? Secondly, Scarif was a Republic listening post during the Clone Wars. If you've ever seen the Clone Wars television series, you would know this. In fact, if you actually just look up Scarif on Wookieepedia, you will see that it is. Okay? And Scarif is not that far away from Tatooine. Okay? Now let me see here. I don't think this one doesn't have it, but I know that the Last Jedi visual dictionary does. Okay. So, as I mentioned before in the other video, these have these new maps in them. And so they have a lot of different things. So let's take a look. This right here, these two, the top one is Tatooine, the other one is Geonosis, because in Attack of the Clones they say that it's only less than half a parsec away. Here's Scarif. Tatooine, Scarif. Now, for the uninitiated, okay, hyperspace lanes. If you're leaving from Scarif in a certain direction, you would know exactly where you're going. And who's Vader again? Oh, that's right, Anakin Skywalker. Hence, he would have known if Leia was leaving Scarif in a certain direction, she'd be heading straight where? Tatooine. Why? Because he grew up there. Duh. Now, that aside, okay, because the hyperspace lanes are safe travel lanes for people to go in, okay? That aside, okay, it would have been easy for them to track the trajectory of the ship and conclude that they were heading towards Tatooine, okay? Now, Episode 5, okay? Because here's the thing. This guy's acting like, they had this hyperspace tracking technology. No, they didn't. And who said this? The movies themselves did. Let's look at Episode 5, okay? Episode 5. Admiral Piet mentions that if the Millennium Falcon went to light speed, she'd, quote, be on the other side of the galaxy by now. Go back and watch Episode 5. He says that. Okay? To which Vader responds, calculate every possible location, destination, along their last known trajectory. Why would they need to calculate every possible location, okay, that the Millennium Falcon's going to go to if they, I don't know, could track the damn ship to light speed? Duh. And wouldn't they have known? Wouldn't they be able to just flip on their little light speed tracker and they wouldn't see the Millennium Falcon going through light speed? They wouldn't know that they would go, wait a minute, she hasn't gone to light speed. Instead, what do? They light speed out of the system. Duh. They didn't have hyperspace tracking technology back then. Oh, wait a minute. The movie itself, Episode 8, did. This is what makes me think this guy never watched this film, because in Episode 8, okay, they're flying out. They're standing there and pose like, we gotta get back into light speed, we gotta get back out of here. And Leia holds up her finger like this. She goes, wait a minute. they've tracked us through light speed. And Finn goes, that's impossible. She goes, yes. Leia herself says yes, but they've done it. So even Leia's surprised that they can track people through light speed. Hence, that's why it took Rose, a genius mechanic, and Finn, a former stormtrooper, to find out, oh my god, this is how they're doing it. Again, I don't know that these people have ever really watched Episode 8, because this is what makes me think they haven't. Because the movie themselves, the movies actually say it. It actually says it. So that's what frustrates me about this stuff. It's like, it's right there. It's plain as day. It's common sense. If you take it within the context of the story. But people went in with some preconceived notion that there was no story, or that it was bad storytelling, or they had their own idea of what the story should have been, and so because it wasn't, they're just like, it's stupid. Again, point debunked, okay? So that was something that the First Order found after the fall of the Empire at Endor and Jakku, and then they made it work, okay? And so that's why, Rose says, well, how are we going to know where the hyperspace tracking module is? And Finn's like, talk to the guy who used to mop it. I'm the guy. Okay? So, there you go. Alright, number 9. Who's filming Maz Kanata's phone call? The Last Jedi really goes out of its way to test the limits of reason when it comes to placing a phone call. Well, let the ridiculousness of Rey and Kylo Jedi Skyping one another go, because how else are we going to see Adam Driver's nipples? Is this guy gay? I'm just asking this question just as a generality, because this is the second time he's mentioned Adam Driver shirtless. And this is a man that wrote this article, by the way. Anyway, back to the article. However, we can't do the same for the conference call that Poe, Rose, and Finn have with Maz Kanata. First off, wouldn't the First Order detect communication sent from the Resistance ship? That's original series Star Trek type technology. However, let's suspend disbelief for a second and say the line was masked. That still doesn't explain who's filming Maz from so many different angles while simultaneously remaining invisible from all other angles, during a shootout no less. If there was no cameraman, shouldn't Maz's connection come from one angle? It makes no sense. Also, why is she moving in this at all? Okay, first off, as to the point of why is Maz even in this movie at all? Ever heard of a plot device? Okay, I think this person missed the writing class on how to develop a plot. Because Maz Kanata is known as a plot device. Okay, similar to the scene in Episode 2 where Anakin and Obi-Wan corner Zam Wesell in the bar, only to subsequently get killed off by the bounty hunter they are searching for as he jetpacks away. Maz is in this movie, leaving behind the Camino Saber dart that Obi-Wan takes to Dexter Jetster and says, what is this? And he goes, oh, that's Camino Saber dart. That's a plot device. Okay? So, presumably, Maz is in this movie because presumably Finn told Poe about a person Han Solo knew on Takodana. Okay? Maz has been around for a long time and she could do a variety of things. In fact, if you look at it, Finn's like, I don't know how we're going to get on the thing, and Poe's like, and Finn's like, oh yeah, I know who to call. So that I presume that while Finn was dressing, okay, because you remember he got up and he's got that bag on him full of Bacta, and I'm assuming that as he was getting dressed, he was kind of filling Poe in on his adventures to Takodana. And I'm assuming that they also kind of talked before they left the Elenium system to go to Starkiller Base, okay, where he kind of told her about Maz Kanata. So I'm assuming that if this person kind of understands this, if a person in general understands this, then it's easy to connect the dots. Again, the movie says you just have to see it, okay? But because she was in that union dispute, the firefight that he's referencing, so because of that, she says, hey, there's this master code breaker, he's on Canto Bight, and he's, and he can do a variety of things. And, so that's why she points him to that. Which brings me to, who's filming Maz? They have droids in the Star Wars universe, don't they? Now, the novelization, I actually got to this point in the novel, and the novelization says that that she was using like a wrist-mounted communication device. But the thing is, if you watch the film, there's no way that it could be a wrist-mounted communications device that she's using. Okay? Now, maybe she has a comlink on her wrist that she's using to talk to them with. Okay? Because she's kind of got her, she's got her hands near her face all the time. But they have droids in the Star Wars universe, right? I mean, we saw a hologram, a three-dimensional hologram, no less, of Princess Leia in Episode 4. In fact, in Episode 1, Qui-Gon Jinn has that little round holoprojector that he uses to project the Naboo ship. So, there's this whole thing. So, I mean, I would just think, and there were little mouse droids that would follow people around. There are communications droids. So, it just makes sense, again, within the context of the lore of Star Wars, that she would be followed by a communications droid during the firefight. Point debunked. There's nothing else to say on that one. That to me is just plain sloppy writing and just sloppy just everything. Okay, this person doesn't know what they're talking about in the lore of Star Wars. Okay, 8. Luke never wants to be found, yet there's a map pointing to his exact location. In The Last Jedi, Luke Skywalker makes it abundantly clear that he never wanted to be found and instead to die alone and gloriously bearded amongst the porgs. Yet for some odd reason, he created a map leading to his exact location should anyone want to find him. The argument is that the map wasn't actually pointing to him, nor did he create it, which is vaguely covered in the novelization of Episode 7. In short, the map was made before Luke's time to show the site of the first Jedi Temple, and it's only assumed he would be there. Still, that doesn't explain why everyone knew he was likely hiding out there, unless Luke is just really stinks at keeping secrets. Point is, if people just have to read a book about your movie to kind of figure out what's going on in your movie, something is wrong. Ever tried to find your way without knowing where you're going? Okay? That's why we have Google Maps today. That's why we have GPSs. That's why we had maps in the first place. To know where we're going. Okay? Now again, let's go back to Episode 4 for a second. Okay? Luke berates Han Solo for the Star Destroyers coming after them. Han states, traveling through hyperspace ain't like dusting crops, boy. Without precise calculations, we could fly right through a star or bounce too close to a supernova, and that'd end your trip real quick, wouldn't it? Okay? Ergo, Luke would need a map to get to Acto unharmed. And because he's making a trip without an astromech droid, it's doubly important. Now, for the uninitiated, which this guy clearly is, okay, and if you're coming here and you don't know what an astromech droid like R2-D2 or BB-8, okay, calculates safe travel through hyperspace and then feeds that data into a nav computer. Okay, now, sometimes navicomputers can have data pre-programmed for destinations. So, like, let's say, for example, you live on Coruscant and you want to fly to Alderaan before it got blown up. Okay, you would type in the coordinates for Alderaan, and then it would tell you, here's what you have to do. And you would go and follow these certain routes. They're called hyperspace lanes. Okay? And then, so, it just makes sense that if Luke was going to go to Acto, he would need a map, and then he would need somebody to create the data to get to that planet. Hence, he used R2-D2. Okay? And because he left R2-D2 at home. Remember, Episode 7, R2-D2 had deactivated himself because Master Luke left without him. Okay? He was there on the planet, training the Jedi, helping Luke train the Jedi, and then he leaves. And then Luke leaves, and leaves R2-D2, and it breaks R2-D2's heart. Okay? And R2-D2 has the map, but what section is missing? The site with Acto. Hence, somewhere along the way, Luke cut that map out, pulled it, and put it on a separate data stick, and threw it away somewhere. We don't know where, okay? And then Lor San Tekka, guy from the village on Jakku, finds it, contacts Leia, Leia sends Poe, setting the whole events of the trilogy in motion. So yes, he never wanted to be found, okay? That's why he cut the section of the map out with his precise location. He says, why do you think I came to the most unfindable place in the galaxy? Duh. He never wanted to be found. He didn't remember. He didn't go back in and erase the map data out of R2-D2's memory banks. Okay? Maybe deep down he did want to be found. Maybe at some point he did. Maybe he thought, maybe I should come back. But after living in isolation for so long, he probably just got the idea that, you know what, I just want to die. I just want to live out my existence here on Acto and die. Okay? Hence the reason why we see him milk those aliens and we see his daily routine. Why? Because Rian Johnson is showing us that he is literally just saying, you know what, I am not the Jedi Master I used to be. Okay? I am just a simple little hermit living out my existence. That's it. Okay? Now, the thing is, how did Rey know he's there? Well, that's in episode 7. Not the book, but the actual film. Here again, making me wonder if this guy ever actually watched episode 7. Because it says, when Ren captures Rey, okay, there's that moment where he's like, got his hand out and he's like, give me all your secrets, like he did with Poe. Okay, he's trying to prise the secrets out of her head. And he says, you're so lonely, so afraid to leave. At night you imagine an ocean. I see it. I see the island. She wasn't imagining the island. Okay? She was actually, seeing that. And, so that's the thing. She was actually, the Force was showing her that in her head. She was interpreting it as dreams. And episode 8 actually says it. When she walks into that tree, that Jedi temple tree, okay? Like, she's following Luke around the island, right? She's standing there in front of it, and he opens up the door, and he's like, you're wasting your time. And he walks up the hill. And she starts hearing the Force whispering to her again. And she turns around and she walks away. And Luke turns around, realizes Rey isn't there, realizes she's heading for that tree. And he walks in and he's like, who are you? And then he's like, why are you here? And then he says, and then she says, I know this place. And he goes, you've seen this place, this island. And she says, only in dreams. She still doesn't, because she doesn't understand how the Force works. So in her head, she's seen this multiple times. She's seen the location where Luke is. Why? Because the Force showed it to her. Okay? In fact, in the novelization, there's actually a point where she does actually have a dream before she leaves Jakku. She actually does have a dream about the island. And then later on, when she goes there with Chewie, at the end of the book, she kind of makes that connection. She's like, oh my god, that's the island I've been seeing in my dreams this whole time. We, as the audience, are supposed to make that connection in our heads, having seen that point where Kylo kind of says, oh yeah, I see the island. Yeah, he's probing her mind, and in her mind, she sees that island. And that's the thing. Okay, she was hiding the map, but she knew that Luke was there. Why? Because the Force was showing her. Okay? So, yeah, that's the thing. One more thing on Episode 7 as to why Luke disappeared. Again, this is from the movie, not the book. Han, the map's not complete. It's just a piece. Ever since Luke disappeared, people have been searching for him. Rey, why did he leave? Han, he was training a new generation of Jedi. One boy, an apprentice, turned against him, destroyed it all. Luke felt responsible. Again, we just talked about that with the Entertainment Weekly article at the beginning of this video. Okay? He just walked away from everything. Finn, do you know what happened to him? Han, a lot of rumors, stories. People that knew him best think he went looking for the first Jedi Temple. Rey, the Jedi were real? Han, used to wonder about that myself. Thought it was a bunch of mumbo-jumbo, magical power holding together good and evil, the dark side and the light. Crazy thing is, it's true. The Force, the Jedi, all of it is true. Back to the article. Finn drags Rose back to base unharmed. There's a lot going on during the climactic battle on Crate. Salt is flying everywhere, the ground looks like blood, ski speeders are doing things, and Luke Skywalker's walking around. Therefore, you can forgive the First Order for missing a thing or two, but not for seeing Finn slowly dragging an injured Rose all the way back to base across what was at least a couple of 100 yards in plain sight. Now that's just sloppy soldiering. After all, self-proclaimed Supreme Leader Kylo Ren just ordered everyone to take no prisoners and kill every last one of the Resistance fighters. You have to think that at least one of those ATM-6 walkers spotted them and taken the initiative. Of course, everyone was too darn distracted by Luke's new haircut. Obviously, someone hasn't been in the military. Because soldiers follow orders, yes, Supreme Leader Ren decided to take no prisoners. But then he reneges on the order as soon as before the troops have a time to deploy and run into the mines. He says, wait! Because he sees Luke walking across from the open door. Okay? So he actually counteracts his own order. So the thing is that it takes time to deploy troops. Here's the thing: you have those big ATM-6 walkers, and if you actually go back and watch the film, you'll see. I mean, they're gigantic. They're like twice the size of the AT-ATs. In fact, the AT-ATs are the small ones in between the ATM-6s. Okay. So if you have a belly load of troops in there, right? Okay. So Kylo Ren's up in the ship at the top, right? And the ATM-6 walkers are down here. Okay. He issues the order: I want you to deploy your troops and take no prisoners. Kill everybody in that mine. So then Hux has to give the order, okay, to another person sitting in that they're sitting in that shuttle. And then that person has to type it in and send it down to all the ATM-6s on the ground. Then the ATM-6s, their commanders, have to say, okay, it's time to deploy. Then they have to, type out their orders and get on the microphone and say, okay, guys, we got in the order. We're supposed to go in there and kill everybody. Then all those troops have to get down to the ground, and then they have to run across the salt flats into the mine to take no prisoners. Okay? So the thing is, it has to filter down. So if he goes, get in that mine, kill everybody, take no prisoners. Then he goes, wait. Belay that last. So now that person typing out the order goes, wait, what? Oh, okay, sorry. Cancel that last. Yeah, Supreme Leader Ren wants you to do this now. Because he says, I want every single person to fire on that guy. Okay? So, yes, I'm sure what happened was, and this is the other thing, if the First Order military is based on the U.S. military, or on most of the world militaries in general, okay, you don't fire on non-combatants. At that point, Rose and Finn are non-combatants. They are out of the fight, okay? It's not like Finn's shooting back over his shoulder with his gun as he's dragging Rose back with him. No, he's just dragging Rose back across. So they're not going to shoot at him. I'm sure an ATM-6 pilot saw that, logged it, and waited for further orders, because that's what they do, okay? So you can't just stand there and say, oh, well, why did they miss this? Because they weren't ordered to fire on them, okay? I'm sure if the order had gone down, Luke hadn't walked out the door, yeah, they probably would have shot Finn and Rose, because they would have had the order to take no prisoners, okay? But at that point, they're just non-combatants. So the guy logged it and waited to see what happened. And besides, then he says, I want all available guns to fire on that man. So now they're not going to worry about some guy dragging an unconscious person across the salt flats. They're going to shoot at the lone figure that's an easy target that's just standing there. Duh. Again, did this guy watch this movie? Honestly? I mean, can somebody answer me that? Because honestly, I don't think this guy did. Because he's made so many mistakes and so many errors in judgment, it just makes me wonder if he ever actually did watch it. Alright. Number 6. Kylo brings the house down on everyone but himself. Learning about the fateful moment that turned Kylo Ren to the dark side and made Luke Skywalker into a crotchety recluse who unabashedly milks aliens. Need one last prop. We get several perspectives on how things went down. It seems Luke enters Kylo's hut to creepily read his mind, and as a result, has a sudden urge to murder his angsty pupil. Decency gets the better of Skywalker, but not before the boy wakes up and in self-defense force pulls the entire structure down onto his master. We might be getting a bit picky with this one, you think. But it seems strange that Kylo wasn't crushed to death by the rubble, or at the very least trapped beneath it like Luke was. It is it was possible he quickly summoned some kind of force field to protect himself, but given the suddenness of the situation, that seems unlikely. Has this person ever seen a Star Wars film before? Honestly, any Star Wars film? Because Force users who can control the Force effectively can make objects go where they want. Case in point, the very end of the film you supposedly watched. Rey Force pulls all of those rocks from the mine and casually tosses them aside. Okay? Let's look back at episode 5. Okay? Yoda pulls Luke's X-Wing out of the swamp and sets it down gently in front of him. Vader pelts Luke with debris. That's why I'm asking, did this guy ever see a Star Wars film? Because Vader sits there and is like pelting Luke with precision, like precision accuracy, okay? With debris. Okay? This film right here, this one, the Clone Wars animated from 2003, okay? This animated film, there's a short where Mace Windu's on Dantooine, okay? While he's on Dantooine, he's surrounded by these battle droids, and he's fighting with his lightsaber. And then they have this world hammer thing that's going along, and then it's got a big puncher, and it goes boom, and it knocks this big wave of stuff back. And during one of those, Mace Windu loses his lightsaber, okay? And then he gets surrounded again by these super battle droids. So he starts fighting them with his bare fists, doing a mix of karate and using the Force to beat these guys up. And at one point, he goes like this with his hand. He actually spreads his hand out like this, and he pulls all of the bolts apart. He pulls the super battle droid apart, and then he starts flinging the droid into other people. Into the surrounding droids. So it is entirely plausible that Kylo Ren could pull the house down on Luke and emerge safe, okay? Because he can make that stuff go where he wants. That's the point. The action makes sense in the context of the characters and of the films. If you ever seen a Star Wars film in your life, you'll understand that. Okay? I mean, episode 2, let's look at that one. Anakin is like taking parts of battle droids and throwing them into Geonosians. Okay? So, I mean, honestly, if you've ever seen a Star Wars film before, that should make sense in the action, in the context of the action. And it says that he was actually training Kylo Ren. Okay? Doesn't say that they had just arrived and then Kylo Ren was like, hey, screw you, man, I'm just going to turn to the dark side. No, they had been there for a while. We don't know how long, but they've been there long enough for Ben to start learning the Force. Because obviously if he can, grab a guy and pull him towards him, okay, in episode 7, duh. Okay? That's my point, is if this person has seen a Star Wars film before, again, point debunked, it's just, this is what I'm talking about. Number 5, Yoda controls the physical world but does nothing to stop billions being murdered. Certainly a classic Yoda appearing to once again hit Luke with his stick was a welcome surprise. However, witnessing him summon lightning from the heavens to torch the original Jedi Temple to the ground was another thing altogether. Force ghosts are nothing new. Force ghosts controlling the weather like an X-Man are. Although there are precedents for it, that doesn't explain why Yoda decides to demonstrate his awesome post-mortem powers to burn a couple of books, but has no problem staying out of the rest of the fight. Maybe he can't get directly involved due to some metaphysical Jedi ghost moral code. However, at the very least, couldn't he have maybe visited Luke right before he tried to murder Kylo Ren and save the galaxy from a whole lot of terribleness? Seems like it might have been just as good a time to drop in for an unexpected hello. I'm sure Yoda probably was waiting to see what Luke would do, because, I mean, this is one of the things that Yoda says to Luke in episode 8. Pass on what you have learned. Not just the good stuff. Not just the, hey, look at me, I'm Luke Skywalker legend. No, the bad stuff, the failure, the this. And that's the problem. Here again, the action makes sense in the context, okay? Luke was indecisive. He was like, he's like walking up and he's got the torch in his hand. He's like, I'm going to go burn this thing down. And he stands up and he's like, I can't quite do it. And Yoda's like, you know what? Fine. If you're not going to do it, bam. I will. And he's like, you know what? Those sacred Jedi texts don't have any basis on what you needed to teach Rey. That's the point. That's why he burnt the temple. Okay? And he was saying, that's why he bashed him in the head with his gimmer stick, because he was like, dude, you're still looking away, looking to the horizon, just like you were in episode 5 when I decided to train you. You dummy. That's the point of the story. Again, did this guy watch this film at all? Because it doesn't make any sense. Number 4, golden dice don't disappear even after Luke stops projecting himself. Like we said earlier, there are a lot of baffling things surrounding Luke force projecting himself onto Crate at the film's end. For instance, where did all of the blast marks on the ground left from the battle moments earlier go when Luke showed up? Or why did he take time to imagine himself getting a haircut? Then there's the golden dice. Luke finding the golden dice during a trip down memory lane on the Millennium Falcon was a nice callback to A New Hope. It also worked when he handed them to his sister Leia as a reminder to those we lose are never truly gone in one of the film's most touching moments. However, then all that meaning literally disappears. Though the strangest part was that the Phantom Dice decided to stick around for a while longer even after Luke had stopped his mental projections. Again, this one was answered just one back. Luke could still use his mental energy as a Force ghost to project those dice on a Crate, and then as soon as Kylo picked them up, he can make them vanish. Okay, it would have made sense considering that Luke taunts Kylo, with that moments earlier. I will, strike me down in anger, and I will always be with you, just like your father. And that's really what that is. That's a reminder to Kylo Ren. Okay, because I'm sure that at some point, okay, Han Solo took young Ben Solo for flights on the Millennium Falcon, and I'm sure that those little golden dice up there caught his attention. Okay, kids love shiny things like that. And so I'm sure he was looking at those, and that's one of the things. He sees those things, he picks them up, and he's holding them in his hand. And then they disappear, and he's like, oh crap. I killed my father. Now I've made my master. Now I've killed my master. Those are part of that whole setup, revelation, payoff that I talked about in the last video. Okay? Again, that was a setup from episode 7. Was, Han dying. And then this one, it's all about Luke telling Kylo, you're gonna get haunted by this the whole time, man. This is gonna come back to haunt you all the time, no matter what. It's always gonna be with you. That's why Rey senses the light side in him. Why he's conflicted, why he's torn apart. Okay? Because he really couldn't bring himself to kill his father. Okay? I think Han knew that. And even though Kylo Ren does actually push the stud that kills his father, okay, it's still haunting him today. And that's the thing. The last 3 here, first one is, the First Order misses fleeing escape pods despite their super magnifying glass. That's that little Oculus thing that Snoke pushes Rey in front of when they're destroying the transports. Apparently this guy has never been in space before or never seen any pictures in space, because objects at a distance, in space you can't tell distance, so objects, even if you're a few hundred kilometers off the bow of the ship, those transports are minuscule, okay, and you would have to know exactly where to look with that super magnifying glass to be able to see those transports, okay. So ergo, because they didn't know that the transports were leaving, okay, because they're just tiny little specks moving against the starfield, I'm sure people were focused on the ship, not on the little transports leaving, okay. So again, that guy is he's missing the point of the entire movie. Luke's clothes remains when he disappears, but not his fake hand. Again, that's just a Force thing. We don't know why. I mean, why did Ben Kenobi's cloak stay behind when he was chopped down by Vader? Wasn't that part of him? Didn't he wear that the whole time? I mean, come on. We don't know why certain things do disappear and certain things don't disappear, And that's just, again, it's just a little nitpicky thing. And And then the last one is Finpack magically jumps from one place to another. That's a continuity error thing. That's when Finn is in front of the escape pod, and Rose comes up, and she starts talking to him, and she gets up in his face, and then when she looks behind him, she sees the pack. So it jumps from in front, because he sets it down in front of the escape pod, and then it's like it's inside the escape pod, and it doesn't actually show him turning around and placing it in the escape pod. So that was kind of the thing that he was talking about. It's a continuity error thing, and it doesn't have any bearing on the actual story. So, all right, well, I've debunked that. So I appreciate you again. Again, this video is about an hour and 20 minutes long. So I'm going to go ahead and cut it here. And so stay tuned. I will have some more reviews, and I'm going to do some DVD reviews. And so from now on, I'm going to put right up here, right behind me. I'll start putting up the movie or whatever I'm going to review, like that. And so we'll just kind of go from there and see where it goes. So thank you for watching Russ's Movie Corner, and have a wonderful day.